But let's begin with Jeremy, who joins us now from Fort Hood. JD, what have you learned?
Well, right now things seem to be getting back to normal actually on the post, but investigators from the FBI and the Department of Defense are busy back actually in Killeen. Agents are right now surrounding the apartment of the accused gunman, Major Malik Hassan. There's a large area around that apartment home that has been cordoned off, and officials say that they are just now waiting for a federal warrant to actually go inside to see if they can learn anything more about this incident. Right now, the base commander here tells me that he does not believe that there is any sort of terrorism angle, but he also says that that can't be ruled out, but it does appear to be highly unlikely. They're going to be going into that apartment, they say, to specifically look for Hassan's computer and what might be on that computer. The two guns that were said to have been used in this shooting are not military issues, so they may be looking for more weapons there as well. Back here at the base, though, there are thousands of families that spent this stressful day separated. They're now reuniting and all seem to be asking the same question: why? The sound that started it all sounds much different now. The same reaction, a sprint, different meaning.
Relief, because it's all over. Like, you just know when that starts going off again, you can go home.
But home seems different now.
I thought Fort Hood or any Army base would be the safest spot ever.
Not this day. 12 soldiers killed, 29 soldiers and 2 civilians wounded at a processing center on the post.
There was a single shooter that was shot multiple times at the scene. However, he was not killed as previously reported. He is currently in custody and in stable condition.
The accused enemy, one of their own. Major Malik Nadal Hassan is an Army psychiatrist. So far, he has said nothing about his motives. But the entire Army, it seems, is wondering about him.
What's going on in his head and what happened to make him do that is just inconceivable. You don't know how to even feel about it.
The wounded will be taken to 3 area hospitals. First responders, not the only ones saving lives.
God bless these soldiers and these great Department of the Army civilians. The quick reaction, people tell stories of soldiers ripping their uniforms apart and basically applying first aid.
For 5 hours, the base was on total lockdown. Emergency vehicles, the only ones coming or going.
The whole base on lockdown. Like, I hope they don't come into my place and like try to do anything or come in my neighborhood or anything. It was terrible. It was really nerve-wracking, really scary.
Amanda Denman had left to do laundry, learned what had happened watching TV.
I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. It was weird. I just started crying while I was folding my laundry.
The details would bring no relief.
As horrible as this was, I think it could have been much worse.
Now, 50 yards away from those 2 waiting room areas where the shooting happened, there is an auditorium. Inside that auditorium were several hundred people waiting on a college graduation ceremony to begin. Soldiers there actually were able to block those doors and make sure that the shooter wouldn't make it there. He did not. The female civilian officer who shot him did also survive. She is hospitalized with multiple gunshot wounds, we're told. Now, Lieutenant General Cohn wouldn't say much about Major Hassan in that last press availability tonight, other than to say his life was not in imminent danger. Live on Fort Hood, I'm Jeremy Desel, 11 News.
11 News reporter Jeremy Desel has been stationed at Fort Hood's front gate and joins us now with the final wrap-up of today's events. Jeremy?
Well, things are beginning to get back to normal here actually on base, but there is plenty of activity. Most of it right now is actually happening in Killeen. Agents from the FBI and the investigators from the Department of Defense have surrounded the apartment that is leased by Major Malik Hassan. Right now, those crews are simply staging. They've blocked off an area about a full block around this apartment, and they are waiting, we're told, for a federal search warrant to go into this apartment and look around and see what they can find. Specifically, they want to get Hassan's computer and any information that might be on that computer. They are, of course, going to be looking for other weapons there as well. That warrant should be coming any minute, and they'll be continuing their search there. For now, we're live at Fort Hood. I'm Jeremy Desel, 11 News.
We began with 11 News reporter Jeremy Desel live in front of the headquarters. Jeremy, what have you learned?
Well, just in the last hour, the flag-draped coffins of the 13 victims of this incident were loaded onto an airplane in a very solemn ceremony. They are now on their way to Dover, Delaware, where we're told that there will be further forensic investigation that is going to occur. But we have also learned that it is not just Fort Hood that has been touched by this incident. The victims of the shootings are from both here at Fort Hood and also 5 other active duty stations around the country. It's been a convoy of high-ranking military and government officials coming through here all day long. Somber moments not just at that ceremony, but all day long. Service call still rings. But 1:34 p.m. is reserved for silence. Just 24 hours ago here, anything but.
I'll tell you candidly, this was a kick in the gut. Not only for the Fort Hood community, but also for our entire Army.
Now the top brass's focus is centered on 2 things, the investigation and the troops.
This is a time for Army Strong to mean what it says. And this is a time to know that we are working every moment to ensure that their safety and security is met to the highest possible degree.
There is a noticeable increase in security on post at Fort Hood. Measures ordered not just here, but at every military base.
Our military are trained to even lose their lives to the enemy, but they're not trained to lose their lives to an insider, and that's what's so hard to take here.
Investigators have seized numerous items, including a computer from the apartment of Major Nadal Malik Hassan, the accused gunman. Still, there is no clear motive established, but plenty to work with.
The reports that he was giving away his possessions, so he was clearly planning to do this heinous act.
Around 9:30, and he brought me that and another, how you call those?
The air mattress?
No,
the bins. Okay.
Yeah, he brought me another one.
Hassan's next-door neighbor says he had been giving her his things for several days, saying he was about to deploy.
Yeah, he brought me all this.
Hassan said nothing to suggest what was coming. To a soldier, adversity is a call to action, to heroism. No lack of that here.
And hearing the stories of courage and heroism that I heard today makes me proud to be the leader of this great Army.
The greatest symbol of freedom, unchanged. The defenders of it, still reeling. And the flag detail here at Fort Hood have just now begun the process of retiring those colors for the night here at Fort Hood. But before they could do that, this time they had to do something a little more unusual because the flag was at half staff. They had to raise it to the top before they could bring it back down to the bottom. Now, investigators in this case are working across jurisdictions. Department of Defense, FBI, Texas Rangers, and local police are all involved in the investigation. They are all still suggesting that Hassan did work alone, but no one is ruling out the possibility yet that he could have had help. Investigators say they're keeping all of their options open. For now, live at Fort Hood, I'm Jeremy Desel, 11.
Spent the day on the Fort Hood grounds getting specific details about what happened.
11 News reporter Jeremy Desel joins us live in front of headquarters right now. Jeremy?
Well, it was just about 3 hours ago now that the flag-draped coffins of the 13 victims of this shooting were actually loaded onto a C-17 transport here after a solemn ceremony attended by both of Texas's U.S. senators and a range of military personnel. That plane left. It is now on its way to Dover, Delaware, and the military's mortuary services base. We have learned that further forensic testing is going to be taking place there before those bodies will ever be released to their families around the United States. Now, investigators from a range of agencies are still trying to piece together exactly what might have led to this incident. They say they are still focused on Major Nadal Hassan, but they are not yet ruling out a tie to terrorism or that he may have had help, but they think that that is not necessarily the case, but they won't rule it out. Investigators are focusing on Hassan's apartment off post in Killeen. There they seized his computer and some other items. We've also learned more about the guns the authorities say he carried yesterday afternoon. The second gun, we're told, was a .357 Magnum pistol that was never fired, and that 5.7mm pistol with an extended clip that allowed it to fire as many as 30 rounds before needing to be reloaded, and it was reloaded numerous times. Throughout the day, a range of high-ranking military and government officials arrived here at Fort Hood, all of them being briefed on the status of the investigation, but more to just pay respect. I talked one-on-one with U.S. Senator John Cornyn about that experience, one that he had on this airfield for the first time today.
It's very emotional. I mean, people are, but I think it's an important part of the paying respect to those who've lost their lives in the service of their country, and certainly the families who are grieving, and to help people work through the inevitable process of accepting their loss.
And that is something that most of the folks here are still trying to do. Both of Texas's U.S. senators said that while the investigation is important, so is making sure that the troops are cared for. And it turns out it's not just the troops here at Fort Hood. That's because the victims of this shooting are also actually stationed at 5 other active duty stations around the country. Ultimately, though, the senators and the military all say the point of all of this moving forward should be to make sure that nothing like this can ever happen again. Live on Fort Hood, I'm Jeremy Desel, 11 News.
11 News reporter Jeremy Desel is live at the Post, where they held a news conference tonight. Jeremy, what did you learn?
Well, investigators are still trying to piece together exactly what happened inside the Readiness Center, and they are still looking for motive, but they do now believe that friendly fire was not a factor in any of those casualties. They also believe that Major Hassan used only one of the 2 weapons that he had with him yesterday. At a briefing late tonight, the deputy commander said that the post is now in an era of transitioning, moving now into a support mode. Retiring the colors is a military rite. This night, not just coming down, getting to the top first, flying at half-staff all day, a long day. The symbol of freedom plays another significant role, the most somber one.
As they bring a flag-draped coffin through one at a time, they're carried on to a waiting C-17.
Expected in a time of war, just not here.
You expect them to be coming home from Afghanistan or Iraq or in other places around the world.
This is supposed to be home. For those who helped the wounded, saw battle far from the battlefield, different now.
This is where you're supposed to be safe. You know, the fight isn't brought over here.
Private First Class Marquise Smith was supposed to be on the way to Afghanistan today, his first deployment. Already had his first taste of combat with one of his own.
Turned around and I ran out the door myself, and as I was running out the door, I can hear rounds flying past me, hitting the wall and hitting the door.
He took a bullet in his boot, not before pulling 4 people from the building.
And hearing the stories of courage and heroism that I heard today makes me proud to be the leader of this great army.
Investigators spent the day combing through Major Nadal Malik Hassan's off-post apartment, taking a computer and other items.
9:30, and he brought me that.
Patricia Villa lives next door, says hours before the shooting, Hassan gave away many possessions, including the Quran.
Yeah, he brought me all this.
Investigators say Hassan legally purchased the 5.7mm handgun used in the shooting at this Killeen gun store. The gun is known to some as a cop killer because it can pierce armor plating. What is pierced most now is the Army's heart.
This is a time for Army Strong to mean what it says. And this is a time to know that we are working every moment to ensure that their safety and security is met to the highest possible degree.
For America's protectors, feeling secure again will not come soon. The flag will return come morning. At Fort Hood, freedom's honor never leaves. Now, we're told that of the 23 people still hospitalized, half of them are actually in intensive care. One of those is Major Hassan. Now, all along, people here have been saying this could have been much worse. There were actually 400 people, 300 soldiers and 100 civilians in that small area where the shooting took place. And now investigators say Major Hassan fired more than 100 rounds. If you include soldiers or civilians who were actually just grazed by bullets but were technically uninjured, the number of people who were shot yesterday is closer to 60. Live at Fort Hood, I'm Jeremy Desel, 11 News.